Thursday, this line of rain likely to stick somewhere across these central areas. Some uncertainty about the exact position when that band of rain lingers, but parts of eastern England staying dry. Quite mild in the south again on Thursday, 10, 11, 12 Celsius. Signs of things turning colder as we go into next week.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, the show that has comedians read the papers so you don't have to bother. My name is Dominic Frisby, I'm your host, and tonight some of the stories we're going to be looking at include the new Jaffa cake eating world record holder, genetically modified babies, pay rises for MPs, and of course Ukraine. With me to analyse the stories and hopefully to derive some humour from them, we have Leo Kearse over there. He's the tall one. High five, Leo. And we have Josh Howie over there. High five, Joshy. He's the specky one. Now, before we let them speak, we go to the news with Rhiannon Jones.
Thank you. Here are your top stories from the GB newsroom. At least 5 people have been killed in a Russian attack on a television tower in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. In Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, at least 10 people have been killed and 35 wounded in rocket strikes by Russian forces today. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has told Russia it must stop bombing his country before peace talks can start.
In order to sit down for talks, one cannot sit down when planes are flying over and bombardment is going on. To sit behind a table, the sides have different positions, one that wants to put pressure, one that doesn't want to reach an agreement. We are for dialogue, yes, but the least that must happen is the bombardment of people must stop.
Volodymyr Zelensky there. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has announced sanctions against Belarus for its involvement in Russia's invasion. Ukraine's defence intelligence claims there are around 300 Belarusian tanks on its border. It says Russia's preparing a deliberate provocation to justify their entry. Speaking at the Tapa military base in Estonia earlier, Boris Johnson said President Putin had made a disastrous miscalculation in invading, and he confirmed the UK won't be sending troops to Ukraine.
I want to be crystal clear, finally, on that point. We will not fight Russian forces in Ukraine, and our reinforcements, like these reinforcements here in Jaffa, are firmly within the borders of NATO members, and they are profoundly the right thing to do.
Wales's First Minister Mark Drakeford says the country is ready to welcome Ukrainian refugees as he pledges £4 million in financial and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. The United Nations says more than 660,000 have already fled to neighbouring countries. Home Secretary Priti Patel told MPs earlier that more Ukrainians will be eligible to seek refuge in the UK. Via an expansive Ukrainian family scheme, British nationals will now be able to bring in parents, grandparents, children over 18 and siblings.
Those joining family in the UK will be granted leave for an initial period of 12 months. They will be able to work and access public funds. Secondly, we will establish a humanitarian sponsorship pathway, which will open up a route to the UK for Ukrainians who may not have family ties with the UK.
From today, train ticket prices in England and Wales are 3.8% more expensive. That's the biggest rise in rail fares in 9 years. The Campaign for Better Transport says the hike couldn't come at a worse time for commuters. And Southend has officially become a city today. On behalf of the Queen, Prince Charles presented the letters patent during a ceremony that formally granted it city status. The late Conservative MP for Southend, Sir David Amos, had campaigned for this before he was stabbed to death in October last year. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to headliners.
Thank you, Rhiannon. Hello and welcome to Headliners, the paper review show with a difference, the difference being that it's good. I'm Dominic Frisby, I'm your host, and with me tonight, our former Strathclyde pole dancing champion, Leo Kearse. Hello, Leo.
Hello. And
we have Jewish Stripper of the Year, Josh Howie.
I'm very poor. No tips.
How are you doing, both gents? Good.
That was a circumcision joke, by the way.
I did, and I wasn't sure whether to acknowledge it or gloss over it.
Well, thanks for just shutting me down there.
I wasn't shutting you down, I was just sort of glossing over because I had a mini panic on the interior.
Okay.
Right, ladies and gents, that is the early show bants out of the way. The next thing we do is go to the headlines, and unfortunately, we have a slight graphics problem tonight, so I shall be reading the headlines off the papers and holding them up for you so that you can see them. And we start with the Daily Mail, which has Pray for Kiev. PM warns Putin is bent on reducing capital to rubble. 40-mile column of tanks poised to strike. And we will, of course, be covering that story. The Times has Leave Now, Putin warns, as he prepares to bombard Kiev. And there's also Abramovich to sell homes in capital to protect assets. We'll be looking at that story as well. We move on to what is next, the Daily Telegraph. Zelensky pleads with West to prevent genocide. On to The Guardian. Desperate rush for the last train from Kiev. If I'm holding that up a bit straight, you can see it better. And we go to, I've missed one out here, I do beg your pardon. We have the all these very big pieces of paper, so difficult to manage. Here we go. The Financial Times. Now, this is an interesting one. China offers role as peacemaker. Interested to see how that turns out. The Sun has barbaric and a picture of Vladimir and an explosion. And finally, we have the Daily Star, the real legacy of bloody Vlad. And those are tonight's headlines, or tomorrow's headlines. Right, and so, Josh, let's start with this first story from the Daily Mail. It's the march on Kiev, 40 tanks poised to strike, rockets raining down on the second city of, and I know I'm pronouncing this correctly because I was told by Rhiannon yesterday, Kharkiv. There we go.
Yeah.
So
it's getting bad. You know, I mean, it's been bad, and it's about to get worse. It's a 40-mile progression, 40 miles of tanks, of weapons surrounding the city, and people, innocent people are going to die. Basically anyone who's Ukrainian is innocent. Boris Johnson is saying that it could be reduced to rubble. The Kremlin have said basically get out. There's 3 million residents, so even 3 million people leaving a city is, can you imagine? There are people who will probably die just doing that. I mean, that's no easy task in and of itself. And Ukrainians and the people in Kiev, and it's nice to see, by the way, that the Daily Mail and other publications are now using the Ukrainian spelling and the pronunciation, Kiev, as opposed, because Kiev is the Russian spelling. So it's quite nice that everybody's sort of doing that. This is what it should be.
When they first started doing that, I just thought it was like, because when newsreaders go to a new place, they always have to pronounce it in a new way. It's like the
Barcelona.
Or like Kolkata or whatever it is. And so I thought it was that. It's like when your mum's posh mate starts saying croissant, like she's from Brittany, But it's not. Apparently they call it Kiev. So now I'm calling everything. I'm eating chicken Kievs, which are a robust circle of Russian meat surrounding some innocent Ukrainian garlic sauce.
Garlic butter. Right, and we turn to our second story, which is Mr. Abramovich, who is selling his house tomorrow.
Oh,
it says here in the Times. That's quite a big sale to achieve in one day, but you're on this one, Lee.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody's got £150 million in cash, I think he is looking for cash buyers. So he doesn't want anybody to spend 6 months sorting out a mortgage. But yeah, according to Chris Bryant, who's spoken in Parliament, Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich is trying to flog all his assets, including his London homes, before he gets caught by the sanctions. He's very, very worried about the sanctions that are coming in. So he's got his 15-bedroom mansion at Kensington Palace Gardens, which is £150 million. He's got another flat for when he can't make it home in the tube, such as today. Tubes aren't running, so he can stay in Chelsea for that cost him £22 million. And also he's trying to put Chelsea, the football club, into the custodianship of a charity. And Chelsea fans were saying, "Oh, look how he's so nice. He's donating it to charity." No, it's to avoid getting caught in the sanctions. So he gives it to charity. I reckon most charities are some sort of tax dodge anyway. But hopefully, I think
he's already put it into that trust.
It hasn't actually gone through yet, I think.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah,
I think he's actually trying to sell it as well.
The trustees.
About Jim Radcliffe buying it.
Right. Yeah, the trustees. Yeah, if anybody wants to pick up, prime London property or football clubs at a fire sale price, this is the perfect day to be doing it.
Chinese billionaires, any UAE people around.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy it with Bitcoin, then because I would, if I was Abramovich, I'd be worrying as soon as you sell it for cash, your cash is actually easier to seize than your.
Do you make love and bring up Bitcoin?
I'll tell you what, because we were doing a story about Bitcoin, and there was another Russian tycoon bloke. This would be in the 2016 bull market, and he was selling his house in Notting Hill Gate for Bitcoin, and we went and did a news story from his house.
Really?
That's why.
Okay,
That wasn't the ongoing.
Well, I always saw
Bitcoin at every opportunity.
I always saw Russian property in London as a sort of nuclear deterrent. Like they're not going to bomb London if they own all of our property.
That's a very good point.
But that's why we should sell them to Chinese people.
Well,
that's a great point.
I love this comment from one estate agent, Mark Pollack of Aston Chase, who says, "Naturally, I'm doing my estate agents. Naturally, I'm more concerned about humanitarian issues, but it is already evident that this crisis is going to have a significant impact on the market."
He had to get that in there, didn't he? Sure, he's naturally more concerned.
But it seems there's 2 or 3 other big sales that were supposed to happen in the last few days where the Russians have pulled out. And the Russian £20 million worth of prime market sales collapsed last week. So the Russian money's leaving London.
Yeah, and it shows that the Russian oligarchs didn't see this coming. All of Putin's cronies, like Abramovich, they didn't see this coming, so they're trying to sell now. And hopefully this means, because Russia's a gangster state, so now that Putin's captains are feeling the hit, they're really being squeezed. It's not just about the money, it's about their livelihoods. They live in the UK, they send their kids to private school. So now that they're really going to be feeling the squeeze, they're going to put the pressure, they're going to be looking for a palace coup. And I wouldn't be surprised if Putin could find himself hanging from a lamppost within a week or two.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the solution to all of this. Is that awful? It really would be, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, Abramovich...
The Jackal, you know, we get a sniper gets him.
Watching too many films.
Maybe send Lawrence Fox.
Nobody wants him in power anymore. And
I think some people have seen this coming for a while. Abramovich has been trying to get out of the UK for a while now, since 2016. So
I think even Putin, though, has underestimated the impact of and the rapidity of the weaponisation of money and how that's impacted Russia. And it's because everything's digital. It's literally switches.
True, but at the same time, he has been spending the last couple of years doing the best to make the country self-sufficient in terms of where their income is coming from China, but also from the systems that they built. So we'll see how much of an impact.
Now, maybe this is the reason that Russians are leaving London in their droves. This is our next story, tube strikes.
Oh, God.
Who's got this one? Josh, this is you.
Oh, man. Oh, God. It's such a nightmare. So Sadiq Khan, when he came in, he said, when he was going to be mayor or sort of campaigning for it, he was like, I'm going to get rid of, there's going to be zero tube strikes. There have now been more tube strikes under his watch than the previous two mayors combined. So 51 tube strikes now. And just the timing of it, like we've come. Why couldn't they just have struck the last 2 years? He had loads of time. Make your point. It's all good. But now it's like we're just opening up. Things are just getting back to normal, and a few people again are just holding this city to ransom. It's infuriating, and the technology exists to make these trains driverless right now. They've existed for years, and this is the resistance of it, but no one else gets to hold on to their job to this level. They have absolutely got London over a barrel.
I think the solution, this is a very sort of Schumpeterian solution. Schumpeter believed in creative destruction, but the amount of times TfL's been bailed out since COVID, the solution would actually have been to let TfL go bust, and then somebody come in and buy the assets and start again, and then you can have your...
Abramovich could buy them.
Abramovich, this will wind you up, Josh. Yeah. I can see you're easily wound up today. Do you know what the average tube... Oh, is that what it is? Do you know what the average tube is?
50 grand or something, isn't it?
56,000.
Oh, my...
56,500 plus bonus.
You know, there isn't even a steering wheel. You just press a button to go and a button to stop and a button to open the doors.
That's insane.
You could train a parrot to do it.
I can't believe that they get paid less than you.
How dare you? Right, our next story, if you are to believe The Guardian, is that we could see Ukrainian refugees housed in Abramovich's very house in Kensington Palace Gardens. I mean, this is just an idea, but outline it for us. Who's doing this? Is you, Leo?
Yeah, no, so this is great. So the mayor of the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. Lviv, all right, cool. I was pronouncing it like the shampoo, that's wrong. Has called on Boris Johnson to seize the properties of Russian oligarchs in London and to use them to accommodate Ukrainian refugees who are fleeing the war. So, yeah, I mean, this is a great idea. It's a David and Goliath situation. Why not? Why stop there? Why not also house struggling comedians in these houses? I don't know. But
do you know any struggling comedians?
No,
right?
No, not in this room.
Try to mix with them.
What about middle of the road comedians with 5 kids? That's who should be accepted.
Okay.
But
get you Kensington Palace Gardens.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
The mayor made some other points that were quite interesting. So, they need less talk, fewer Instagram posts and more action. And made the point that EU nations had allowed Russia to modernise its army. We paid for all these tanks and all these missiles and rockets that are falling in Ukraine at the moment when we pay through the nose for our energy. Because green policy, net zero in this country, means we've shelved all of our North Sea oil. We're trying to get all energy from windmills.
I got this one with bloody Bitcoin. Well, this one here with the green stuff.
This is a fact. We don't have, we're not increasing our nuclear power capacity, so we're dependent on Russia. We're still paying Russia. We've cut them off from SWIFT. It just means we're going to have to use a different system to pay them for the oil and gas we're using.
We use very little gas from Russia.
Germany uses.
Yeah, Germany, fine. We are not German.
And we're all part of the same.
This is GBNews.
We all pay the same. We all pay the same amount because it's the amount of stuff flowing into the system. So if we develop the Cambo oil fields in Scotland, then it would give Scottish people jobs, which they wouldn't like, but but it would mean we'd have some more oil and gas.
You're absolutely right, Leo. We do need to be less dependent on foreign resources. But I think in the case of gas, UK is only 5%.
Right.
We get most of it from Norway. Nevertheless, the reason we have this energy crisis is shutting down coal, failing to develop nuclear, failing to develop our own gas.
And not investing in Bitcoin. I like there is
the excess energy to mine Bitcoin.
There's a nice thing in The Guardian though where it says later on, it says all the non-essential shops are shut, cash is in short supply, supermarkets have run out of some goods. So it was like flashbacks 2020
Right.
UK.
I believe we have reached the end of part one. Wow, didn't that fly by? Stay tuned to find out about Britain's most wanted woman on the run, about genetically modified babies, and about why Steven Seagal is back in the news. That's all in part two. We'll see you in a moment.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. My name's Dominic Frisby. Joining me tonight, we have GB News' answer to Laurel and Hardy, Josh Howie and Leo Kearse.
Am I the fat one?
I don't know. I'm going to let you two work that out. But and we all three of us were just discussing an interval, and we're just going to do a quick big up to Twitter user Faye, F-E-I, because you always post really nice and intelligent things on Twitter. So we appreciate your good work. The ideal Twitter user. Now, this is a very interesting story from the Times. Genetically modified babies, Josh.
Well, occasionally you get a story and you sort of think, oh, it just seems like a funny little peek. And then you think, wait a minute, they could be playing this clip 20 years, 100 years from now and going, this was the moment that we realized that humanity was over or went into a new phase or whatever it is. So someone's just getting out of prison, this scientist in China, and he basically changed the DNA of 3 babies. And now the Chinese government are trying to work out, or not the government, but they're sort of being advised by what they need to do, how they're going to follow these babies through their life. You know, the thing that this could be the first superhuman, basically. And the superpower that this scientist gave him.
With the parents' permission?
No, well, that was it. It was he falsified forms, and obviously it was totally unethical, and he's just been in prison. He's just getting out of prison now. But the superpower he gave these 3 children is that they wouldn't be able to contract HIV. And I don't know how good a superpower that is. I don't know if you're arresting somebody and it's like...
There's not a character in the X-Men.
Yeah, I'm not going to wear a condom as I arrest you. But it is a big deal. It's a big story that this is where humanity's at the moment. I know we've got war in Europe and people die, but this is a big deal with huge ramifications for our future as a species.
I often admire your physique, Leo, and wonder if you've had some kind of genetic modification.
No, I haven't. I would if I could. I also want some steroids. But apparently, I've done some research into gene splicing. I watched this documentary called Jurassic Park. And apparently sometimes when you edit the genes and the DNA, it has unintended consequences. And then everything goes awry. And this is terrifying. This shows why we need medical research in the West. I think we've got very stringent ethical restrictions on medical research in the West, which is good. But if we don't, compete in some way with China, they're going to. I mean, they're already making. Look what happened with coronavirus. There's evidence of gene editing in there, and so coronavirus in a human form doesn't sound very good.
No. Yeah, it's interesting because the more regulation you have, the more barriers there are to invention and in experimentation.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons that free speech is so important. But it's amazing that China more and more. It seems to be leading the world technologically wise.
Yeah, but if they don't have the necessary security or the ability to hold people back or to deal with ethics or whatever, then what has just happened for the last 2 years of our lives? If they created it, which I think they did. Speaking
of regulation, The Guardian is next. Betting firm 888 has been fined for unscrupulous business practices. Or are they just doing what bookies do, Leo?
Well, yeah, I think they are doing. I mean, this points to a wider malaise in the online gambling industry. So they've just been fined £9.4 million, which is the third highest fine in the history of British gambling regulation. So there are multiple failings. During the pandemic, people were stuck at home. They're online. They were deprived of stimuli and social contact. So some of them, went a bit crazy on the online slot machines. So the regulator found that 888 wasn't properly identifying customers. Because they've got the analytics to identify, who's a problematic spender. I mean, they don't carry out financial checks until somebody's deposited £40,000, which is a huge amount of money. In one case, they did no checks on a customer until they lost £37,000 in 6 weeks.
It's okay, they were a tube driver, so they're totally loaded.
Yeah, they still had another 27 grand left over. Lucky there's no steering wheel in this, But yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. And the apps and the websites that they have now, they have neuroscientists and psychologists that can work out how to tweak people's. They make these apps tweak people's dopamine, so it's almost like a drug. It is like a drug, except that a crack dealer wouldn't let you run up a 37 grand bill. They'd make you pay.
Yeah, I know it's deliberate because I was listening to I'm sorry to say this, Josh. It was a Bitcoin company. The guy's got a Bitcoin out the other day, and he was telling me about it, and he was really excited about it. It's got some new widget that does exactly what you just described, but better than anyone else. And it's a Bitcoin mining thing. He's like, it's totally addictive, and once you start doing it, you can't stop doing it.
Yeah. And you see it in all kinds of apps like Candy Crush, and social media as well, Facebook and Instagram. They try and keep you scrolling.
It's so. I don't know if either of you two are gamblers. I'm not, but I once went to the races with. There was we used to do a comedian's day out. We all used to go to the races.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting us.
Well, we knew you weren't gamblers, but one of them knows all the trainers, he knows all the stables, and he was giving us advice. And I think I put a £5 down on an accumulator, which is one where you have to get third, second, and first right, and it all came in. And in that moment, 2 minutes before, or 2 seconds before they crossed the line, when I saw I was just going to turn my £5 into £200, whatever it was, I had a rush like one of the strong. It was like a really, really strong drug.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Was the comic called Short?
No, it was Jeremy O'Donnell. The guy who advised us on the.
Interesting. That's how it's worked.
He was our expert.
But these companies. Sorry, you're moving on. But these companies are still making lots of money. That's why they don't mind the fines. 9.5 million. They've just been fined. They were fined a couple of years ago, 7.8 million. For them, it's worth the gamble of not doing this stuff because they're making profits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know so many lives that have been destroyed by gambling, and I always advocate no regulation, free markets, individual responsibility, and one of the places it falls down for me is gambling.
Yeah.
I've seen how...
And there's no social utility to it.
No. Anyway, and we all know how much it took off. Everyone was locked down and bored out of the brains, and online gambling took off. Anyway, as Russia invades Ukraine, former Prime Minister, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has some great ideas to de-escalate world tensions. This is yours from The Guardian.
Yeah, so he's always been a bit of a nationalist. And after World War II, obviously, Japan had a lot of rules about their military and also nuclear weapons. And they've obviously been the only country in the world that have had nuclear weapons on their population. So to have a former Prime Minister of Japan calling for American nuclear weapons on their soil is a big deal. And obviously China has freaked out because the two countries, I wouldn't say they're enemies, but they ain't friends. And you've got Taiwan. They got previous, yeah. And you've got Taiwan, which is obviously this big hoo-ha. It's like their version of Crimea or whatever in the Chinese Sea, China Sea. So I thought there already were nuclear weapons in China, but then I realised I was remembering some sort of James Bond movie with silos opening or something. So I didn't realise that this is one of their core. They've got they call it the three rules or the three principles, three non-nuclear principles.
Is this not a bit like Gordon Brown coming along and saying we need X, Y, and Z? I mean, what Gordon Brown says, people might get excited.
Well, I believe he's still in politics. He's still, I think, the leader of his party.
The existing Prime Minister has said no.
Yeah, yes, he said no and sort of said it's ridiculous, but this is what he's been pushing for the whole time. But also, I like Wang Wenbin, who's the foreign minister spokesman, said, we strongly ask Japan to deeply reflect on its history and be cautious in its words and deeds to stop provoking trouble. That is a proper threat. We asked him, do you remember the last time you had nuclear bomb? So that's what I call passive-aggressive respect.
But China's had the biggest military build-up in almost history since World War II. So they've been spending. I mean, it's still kind of dwarfed by what America spends on its military. But they've really ramped up their military, and they've got nuclear weapons, of course. So I mean, it seems unfair for China to be. It's quite an aggressor in the area with Taiwan and with islands between the two, and with its sort of allyship with North Korea. So yeah, I think Japan. Maybe Japan need to build their own ones instead of having American ones.
American military, world's biggest employer. There's a little fact for you. Right, with the Western world uniting behind Ukraine, could China's support for Russia be wavering? This is from the Mail, Leo.
Yeah, this is interesting because, Russia and China have traditionally been close allies, and, Russia sells so much oil and gas to China. But then what was interesting, when the invasion of Ukraine began, Chinese state media shared a video of Zelensky. So they shared a video of the Ukraine president, condemning the attack, which was, a huge signal to the world that China wasn't behind Putin and wasn't sanctioning the attack. So Foreign Minister Wang Yi told Dmitry Kuleba, I think I did well with both those names, that Beijing deeply regrets that conflict has broken out between Ukraine and Russia and is paying extreme attention to the harm suffered by civilians. Because none of them are Uyghur Muslims. So, on the one hand, China, thinks that big countries like Russia and China should run the world, as opposed to, little assemblies of countries like Europe. And it opposes democracy, and it needs Russian oil and gas and other minerals like palladium.
And Russian grains, it's 3 days from hunger.
And we need that as well. But that's on one hand. On the other hand, China hates chaos. It wants stability and order in the world. It wants to take over the world, but in an orderly fashion. Yeah. None of this, mad running in and throwing around nuclear weapon threats and things like that. And it doesn't like Europe and NATO beefing itself up, because one thing Russia's done that's totally counterproductive for what Putin wants is really drawn Europe together, and also NATO has, got flames at its feet now. So Germany's spending much more money on military, and also it's just kind of a bad look for dictatorships. So if I was a dictatorship, I'd be like, whoa, we're not all like that.
Yeah, he's lost the propaganda war, Putin.
Yeah.
I guess he's come up against a film star, hasn't he? And he knows the film star.
He knows what he's doing, yeah. And but Ukraine and China have a strong relationship as well. Economically, there's like 19 billion in trade between them. Also, there's this route that China is trying to build through to Europe, which goes through Ukraine. So they don't want to anger the Ukraine at all.
I think Ukrainian grains could feed 600 million people.
Yeah, it's the basket of Europe, food basket of Europe. And so China in the UN has been abstaining from the votes there, as opposed to vetoing them, which obviously Russia's been doing. But on Friday, I mean, this just shows how lame the UN is. The UN Security Council put out this resolution that deplored Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. I mean, big word. Oh, they deplored it. It was it's shameful or whatever. Actually, let's get some action, UN. But of course, you got Russia on the security, or the head of the Security Council. It's pathetic.
The Independent is next, and the Treasury is preventing the NHS from maximising taxpayers' money, whatever that means.
It's me, yeah.
Is that you again?
This is me, yeah. My mother-in-law is a nurse, humble brag. She makes more money as an agency nurse than by working directly for the NHS. And that's been going on for a long time now. And part of the problem is that the NHS and the government aren't working together to do long-term planning on what they need in terms of their workforce. And because of that, so much money, literally billions of pounds, are being wasted by paying the extra. It's much more to pay for an agency nurse than it is to have someone working in-house. Yeah. And they need to sort this out. This has been going on for years. So it's absolutely ridiculous that it's still... It's because they, rather than spending the money on building council flats, they've spent billions on putting people in hotels and hostels.
Yeah.
It's
how is this the Treasury's fault?
Well, the Treasury is the one who needs to put the long-term plans in terms of the financial plans. We are going to hire this amount of money over this amount of employees over this amount of time.
So do they not say to the NHS, you're going to have money next year? So the NHS are like, whoa, we might not have any money next year.
Yeah, well, this is it. They need longer term planning because, of course, if you are hiring people in-house, you have to factor in 20 years. And they need to sort of cordon off a certain amount of money to do that. And it's a massive waste of money.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, who'd have thought a public sector organisation would be badly run? Yeah. I'm just amazed.
You heard it here, GB News. The NHS is a massive waste of money.
Bitcoin.
After a decade on the run, Britain's most wanted woman, a 5'7" blonde, says the Mail says.
She was flaunting her curves.
Has been captured in Spain while walking her dog on the Costa del Sol, Leo.
Yeah, that's right. So Sarah Panitsky, she's 47. She was held on Sunday by officers from a Madrid-based police unit after being caught walking her dog. So she's been wanted since 2013. She's been on the run she vanished since 2013 over a massive mobile phone VAT fraud in which she played a key role by laundering up to £1 billion. So apparently there was a 16-strong criminal gang that were, when you think of crime, you think of something like, I don't know, crack cocaine or a jewellery heist or something. No, they were just going abroad, buying mobile phones without VAT, value-added tax, and then bringing them home to the UK and selling them. So, I mean, it's crime, but it's not the worst thing I've ever heard of. And she was in charge of taking the money to Andorra, to Dubai, and places like that to clean the money. But she was caught, and as the Daily Mail says, she's 5'7" and blonde, and
public school.
Yeah, really went on about her education. She's got 10 GCSEs. I would hate to be arrested and then be reported in the Daily Mail. He only got 9 GCSEs.
You know that brown book you got after finishing school that had all your school records in it? The only time that's ever used is in the Daily Mail. That's what it was for.
But this is where the plot thickens. The father is called Leo.
Oh, really? I thought you were going to say it was Robert Maxwell.
No.
But supposedly he had a similar back. He went to prison himself, even though he was sort of rich and whatever. He was buying council flats and then selling them for huge profits.
Because they didn't have mobile phones around at the time.
Yeah. So.
Now, this is where we discuss, lack of proper representation. She was the only woman on the National Crime Agency Most Wanted list.
Yeah, and now she's not
more women.
This
on
is
that list.
very, very sexist.
Yeah.
And they need to sort it out, and they need to have some sort of quota.
Yeah. And was she stealing as much as the other criminals? We need to narrow that gap.
Well,
the proceeds of crime need to be equitable.
In all seriousness, she could go to jail for 17 years. That's what they're recommending. The guy who led the whole thing is gone to jail, sentenced 24 years. 17 years. Surely that's more than rapists or whatever. That seems like a ridiculous.
lot.
It's tax fraud. It's tax is the government's revenue source. They always go for it.
Yeah, unless it's Amazon.
Well, that's
Sorry, are we funded by Amazon? Sorry,
that's
Not
different.
anymore.
That's evasion, not avoidance, not evasion.
Avoision.
We've reached the end of part 2. Time for some ads. Please buy their products, especially if it's Amazon. GB has had to cut all ties with our Russian overlords, and we're currently relying on Chinese paymasters who aren't as generous. But first, it's the weather.
Hello again. After a sunny day today across the north, it's going to be a rather grey day for most places tomorrow, but it will still be sunny across the northwest of Scotland, where this area of high pressure will hold on. But further south, low pressure is moving in. These weather fronts bringing a pretty wet evening across southwest England, but that rain on this weather front is continuing to track northwards, so spreading into parts of South Wales and across the Midlands also, and eventually into North Wales and northwest England too. But much of northern England, Northern Ireland, Scotland having a dry night with the clear skies persisting across Scotland, turning cold out there by dawn. We will see a fairly widespread frost, but further south, look at that 7 in Cardiff and Southampton to start Wednesday, but it will start pretty dull and pretty damp here. Further outbreaks of rain trickling northward, so a very different day over northern England, North Wales, and the rain will spread into Northern Ireland as well. So gone will be today's sunny skies. We will hold on to them across northern Scotland, but we will see cloud and eventually even some rain trickling into central and southern Scotland too. Not much rain across eastern England. Much of the day will be dry here. Quite mild in the south. We could get to 12, maybe 13 in the southwest, but not feeling all that mild. Generally 9 or 10 will be a top temperature. Through the course of tomorrow evening, that rain will continue to spread northwards into parts of Scotland. So we'll see a bit more over northeast England, easing off for a time elsewhere before another line of rain then works its way from Northern Ireland into Wales and southwest England, leading to a fairly grey, damp Thursday for many. But Northern Ireland should brighten up. Wales, southwest England may also cheer up through the course of Thursday. This line of rain likely to stick somewhere across these central areas. Some uncertainty about the exact position when that band of rain lingers, but parts of eastern England staying dry. Quite mild in the south again on Thursday, 10, 11, 12 Celsius. Signs of things turning colder as we go into next week.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome to part 3 of Headliners. I'm your host, Dominic Frisby. With me analysing tomorrow's papers are the Headliners B team, A-team, Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. Now, a teacher has been suspended for inappropriate behaviour. This is from the Mail, Josh, at Putney High School, which is close to where I grew up.
Yeah, you were just telling me about their school uniforms. You said specifically not to mention it on air. Anyway, so this is one of those classic articles in the Telegraph, any newspaper, where they do the headline and then you get to the end and then it's like, oh, that wasn't why they were fired. So she wasn't fired for inappropriate emails, really. She was already actually fired because she'd been arguing with some HR guy or something like that. But it seems like she did have. They're sort of arguing that she had an inappropriate relationship. There's obviously we're not talking sexual here or anything like that. But she basically had some emails and called people favourites. You're my favourite host, and then they did like some X's at the end. Thank you. We just say X's. I'm always doing X's after tweets to Leo. So that doesn't seem like such a big deal. But the funny thing is, in this supposedly inappropriate email, she goes, "A big hug to you and the other special people you know you are," and signed off by Miss Nichols. So it wasn't like she was sending nude photos. She was still keeping somewhat of a relationship. Putting 2 X's nowadays do you think 1 X is normal, right? Do you think it's the second X is the problem?
She's a artistic type, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say
those artistic types.
It was a little bit.
Yeah, but
over the
little bit, but also like it sounds like she was leaving. So she was already knew she was leaving. She's sending emails to them saying, "Look, I'm gutted. I'm going to miss you," and all that. She's obviously feeling a bit hurt as well. Yeah. I think the stuff she got fired for, really was that after she'd kind of been let go, but it was still there to serve her a notice. She basically stole some sheet music to stop a concert going ahead or something like that. This whole thing sounds very. Have you seen Whiplash? No. It's about it's about a sort of music teacher who takes things to the next level.
I tried watching it,
it's an amazing film.
Really?
Amazing film.
Would you have sacked her, Leo, or would you?
It depends how attractive she is. But I mean, it's nice that you've got a teacher who's that invested in her, cares that much about her pupils. But also the overall story just sounded like it just smelled of cats and astrology and people who say I'm an empath. You know what I mean? So she sounded like an absolute nightmare. I'm glad they got shot of her. If she's watching it, I don't mean that.
Right.
Sign up to his Patreon as well.
We're going to find she's going to troll you on Twitter now. Well, I rather like this next story. A gran ignored by the council took street planning into her own hands and built a speed bump outside of her house out of a dry stone wall. Tell us this story, Leo.
Classic British story. I don't like it. She damaged an Audi. But some people are defying the government to go and fight in Ukraine. This gran has been accused of causing more than £1,000 worth of damage to an Audi with a DIY speed bump. So Andrea Wilkinson installed the homemade obstruction cobbled together out of rocks from a dry stone dike to stop traffic whizzing past her country cottage. But she was charged with criminal damage and hauled before a judge.
We're going to see the graphic as you talk there.
Oh my God! Yeah. I mean, that doesn't look like a speed bump. That just looks like some stones in the road.
Yeah.
And so somebody, Amy Leadbeater, said she drove through the stones causing...
Leadbeater.
Okay. Well, it looks like Leadbeater to me. Leadbeater. In fact, I'm calling her Leadbeater. What's she going to do? Sue me as well? She's got too many court cases going on. So
she wouldn't be able to drive here.
She was driving.
Pencil.
Do I what?
Use a lead.
I'll take the lead on this story. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So she damaged her Audi A1 Sportback and couldn't get to the nail salon in time. I feel like this. So originally,
Miss Ledbetter originally said it was like 50 quid damage.
Yeah, originally it was 50 quid damage, and then she said, she obviously saw that claim was successful. She was like, why don't I just get a new fridge out of this? You know what I mean? And then, so they called a vehicle engineer, Adam Hinchcliffe, as an expert witness in court. I don't know why. Are my taxes paying for all this? I mean, this is ridiculous. It's like some stones in a road. But he said there's no way the damage to the turbo unit could have been done by those stones, Your Honour. And so I'm not sure where the case lies now.
Say in the story who actually won, but you infer.
No, I think the grandmother. By the way, the grandmother, Wilson, 51. Where's she from?
Glasgow, I'm going to
No, Bolton. Bolton. Yeah. Okay, sorry, Bolton.
Youngest grandmother in the country. I didn't know that. Good one. She's younger than me. Right, Steven Seagal, I learned from the Daily Mail, is Vladimir Putin's chum, Josh. And they both martial arts.
But they love, I think they both love watching Steven Seagal movies. So there's just two of them left in the world.
It's like when we three meet after the show and watch the show back together.
Oh, it's good times, all hugging each other. So he previously praised Putin as one of the great living world leaders. And you just think at that point, how far the mighty have fallen from Under Siege 2? How do you get from Under Siege 2 to that? He's actually also got, I think he's got a Russian passport. And he's just parroting the Kremlin propaganda. It's ridiculous that he's sort of saying, oh, look, we're all one family, which is exactly what Russia is trying to say, that the Ukraine is part of Russia rather than being a democracy as part of
he's been
Europe.
granted citizenship. Are you a Steven Seagal man?
I was, up until he sided with a tyrant. So I think it's ridiculous, and it's weird.
Do we deplore Steven Seagal now?
I'm now Chuck Norris all the way. Chuck Norris, good, solid Republican.
Never do that.
Never stands up for Western liberal democracy. I love that in
a film star.
In a film star, yeah. But we've seen quite a few people on the right coming in with praising Putin. Trump did it.
No, but this guy's a lefty. Well, it says here, because he's also a big environmentalist.
Oh, yeah, right-wing people can be environmentalists as well.
Well, but it says here he was part of a thing called Just Russia Patriots for Truth, and it was when three leftist parties. Well, you got Corbyn and stuff all singing. So
I think in Russia, they're so far left that they're actually what we'd consider authoritarian right.
Yeah. Welcome to the Corbyn movement there.
The Daily Mail is...
Had to get my digs in.
Corbyn is to you what Bitcoin is to me. Right, the Daily Mail is next, and who better to talk about vegan court wigs than Leo Kearse?
Oh, my God. So, a junior lawyer has launched vegan court wigs, and they're made from hemp, so they can, smoke. Oh, God, it's just... I can't even say the joke because, other people made the joke, and I was going to make
lawyers
about how terrible the joke is. But so they're £600 each. These vegan wigs for barristers. Barristers wear these sort of long. My fiance is actually a barrister, and it stems from Louis XIV.
God, haven't we just got that one in, didn't we? My fiance, my 6-foot fiance, barrister.
She's also much younger than me and very attractive.
Didn't they think if you were going bald, it was a sign you had some kind of disease?
Syphilis, yeah. So Louis XIV started the trend. We see in...
I don't know syphilis.
We see in...
Is that meant to be a dig there?
You'd think, if that's a sign of syphilis, baldness, then if somebody's wearing a wig, that's a sign of syphilis as well.
I was actually born in China, and they got rid of the syphilis gene for me. So I can't get syphilis. That was a little callback to anybody who's been watching the show from the beginning. Thank you.
But these vegan wigs, they cost £600 each, which is a lot of money, even for
more than the normal one.
More than the normal one. Isn't that just like vegan food?
Yeah. Also, would you want a vegan barrister? I don't know if I'd want a vegan barrister, to be honest. No. I want a meat eater.
Yeah.
I don't want a vegan
carnivore.
I don't want someone who's going to pass out in the middle of court or something.
Lawyers use this terminology. My friend recently sued another comedian, you might know, Darius VK. But he got a new lawyer, and the lawyer came in and was like, "Yeah, your old lawyer was a herbivore. I'm a carnivore." So that is the terminology they use.
Right, the Daily Mail is next, and the British Lads Army, Josh.
So loads of people, they put out a call. The president put out, Zelensky put out a call for a foreign legion, essentially, and British ex-soldiers and other people have want to go. And initially, it was sort of seen to be encouraged by Liz Truss, who said, that she sort of appeared to encourage it. She said she absolutely supported those. But Boris Johnson today has said that might not be a good idea. They might open them up to sort of prosecution of under UK terrorism laws for the people who went and Although saying that, the people who went and fought ISIS have never. They tried to but they never have actually been prosecuted under those laws, but it just opened them up to the possibility of it.
So the people who fought for ISIS were prosecuted, but not the people who fought ISIS,
against it,
which makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It does make sense, but it's still, if you look at the actual wording of it, it's like it's promoting a foreign entity using violence or whatever. It does actually fit into that. Under that criteria, but there are people. There's a list here in this article in the Mail of different people who are going. You've got someone, a 60-year-old former territorial army member. You know those TA guys; they'll do anything to see some action, to see some real action. You've got a gym owner, Leon Dawson, who wants to go out there and show them how to do press-ups properly and whatnot. But I mean, respect. It is discussing what's going on, and people actually feel like they want to get out there and they want to get involved. I can absolutely understand that. I'm not doing it, but absolute respect to them.
And there's been some criticism of people wanting to go over when they don't have any military experience. But what they don't know, what the Russians don't realise, is we've been playing Call of Duty for like 15 years, and it's got that level in Pripyat. So we know all the hiding places. We know where to get the sniper positions.
I will say, voluntary armies tend to perform better than conscripted ones. But I think in the case of this one, the issue is just Russia's so much better armed.
Yeah, saying that, but are they better trained? And do they know how to use their weapons? There's been a lot of arguments about that, and what the Ukrainian army has been trained over the last. We're saying about what is the UK doing. Can we be doing more? Yes, but the UK has been training the Ukrainian army for about the last 10 years, and they're pretty good.
Now, one of the glories of an open, free society, and I'm thinking of the internet here, is that people get up to all sorts of imaginative and creative ways to help a cause. And this next story from The Independent is an example of that, Leo, I would say. Yeah,
this is great. I mean, we've seen some people like Anonymous were targeting the Russian state with hacking attacks. And this, I don't know if you remember, like a month or two ago, Elon Musk made a plea. There was a teenager who set up a Twitter feed that tracked his private jet, and he offered them I think it was about $6,000 or something, which seemed like a small amount for Elon, to be honest.
It was a pathetic amount.
I know, tube drivers are literally scoffing at that amount.
$5,000,
That's like a day's work for a tube driver.
But the teenager who set it up, Jack Sweeney...
He asked for $50,000.
And he said no.
And Musk said no.
Right, no way. Good, well, good on Musk. And Musk obviously, is helping Ukraine as well. He's positioned as Starsat, they're called.
So they get the internet.
So they get free internet over Ukraine, which is amazing. But so Jack Sweeney is another tech-related guy who's helping involved in it. So he's created a Twitter account that tracks all the Russian oligarch jets. So the automated feed tracks the helicopters, private jets, and commercial airplanes of billionaires, including Roman Abramovich. And interestingly, in a previous story about Roman Abramovich, they knew that he'd landed in Moscow and then flown to
Caribbean, I think, or something like that.
Like
a private helicopter.
And I wonder if it's from this Twitter feed.
Right, last story. The Daily Star, Josh, reports we have a new Jaffa cake eating world record.
If only I knew that this exists. So someone, Max Stanford, 34 years old, he has smashed the record by eating 88 Jaffa cakes in 3 minutes. And this is, Daily Star says it's incredible. No, it's not incredible. It's Tuesday night. 88 does not seem... I mean, I know I've done a packet in 20 seconds or so. 20,
no,
18?
I think, there's some, it's about,
10,
I'd say 12.
12.
But they're a very easy thing to eat, especially with, he's eating them with warm water. Soft sponge, and they've got built-in moisture.
Yeah.
So,
88.
Piece of cake.
It's a biscuit. It's a biscuit.
I love this. I train hard.
Yeah.
Training is the same time and effort that is required to run a marathon.
Which is what it's going to take to actually lose all that weight now.
Required to eat a marathon.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we have you. Do you have a biscuit eating record? Either of you? Have you? Can you throw down a gauntlet?
I can eat a whole packet. I've eaten a whole packet of chocolate hobnobs before, which is too many. Like, it's too many, and don't do it unless you're in some sort of world record competition.
I think we need a new GB News show, maybe.
Maybe next time we're on together, we'll have a cake-off. That is all we have time for, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to my guests, Josh Howie and Leo Kearse, and thank you to you at home or wherever you are for watching. Headliners will be back at the same time tomorrow, 11 p.m, and then again at 5 a.m. I'll be hosting, so make sure you tune in. Until then, cheerio.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion.